What rule sounds stupid but isn't? It's against the law to sleep it off in your car when you're not feeling well from drinking. Yes, it might seem unfair, but in reality, it can make people believe they're okay to drive just because they took a nap. If they nap in the car, they might end up driving later because they didn't wait long enough. Imagine going to sleep feeling dizzy at 3 a.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. You still shouldn't be driving depending on how much you drank. But feeling uncomfortable and seeing the sunrise might make you think about driving. Those DUIs before 9 a.m. are often because of this. I was paid to check 4 to 5 places for this, and unfortunately, some people ended up in trouble for trying to do the right thing. But after my first month in the job, my opinion completely changed. Allowing sleeping it off encourages people with impaired judgment to drive when they shouldn't. A short nap doesn't make you safe to drive. Neither does a longer one. Sometimes, even after sleeping for 8 hours, you might not be fit to drive, especially if you're dealing with a terrible hangover and didn't sleep well. You might need more than 12 hours before you can safely drive home. Sure, responsible adults act responsibly, but that's not always the case, especially when it comes to public safety. If 1 out of 10 people isn't fit to drive, that's already too risky. Consider someone getting seriously hurt because they thought they were okay to drive after a nap. You couldn't even warn them by calling the cops because they might drive off to avoid getting into trouble, which would only make things worse. Any responsible person who tried to warn the sleepers was fired because they'd be encouraging a tipsy person to drive. I used to think this law was unfair until I saw it in action and got involved. Now I still believe it shouldn't be allowed, but the punishment should be much less severe. Getting a ticket would be enough, but getting charged with a high crime for trying to sleep it off is too harsh. I wish everyone could act like responsible adults, but we all know that doesn't always happen. This is New Mexico, one of the states with the highest number of incidents. You can't just sleep anywhere you want on private property. If you're going to drink heavily, you should always have a way to get home safely. Spending $10 to $100 in an Uber or taxi to follow well-known laws is a small price to avoid getting charged with a DUI. Businesses aren't being mean by not allowing people to sleep there. They just don't want to deal with the mess and trouble that often comes with it. Those who could walk, talk, and hold a conversation simply walked away when asked to leave. Story 2. I worked at a place that makes pizzas, like a self-serve pizza bar. At the end of the night, I'm constantly getting people asking, "Hey, do you discount the pizzas when you're close to closing?" What? Why not? You're going to throw it away anyway. Do you donate the pizza you don't sell? What? You don't? What a waste. Lots of people could eat that. Or just, can you give me some of the pizza for free? What? Why not? You're going to throw it away anyway. No, I won't discount the pizza for you. The problem is that when it's common knowledge that pizzas get discounted, like, say an hour before the place closes, people will literally just stop buying pizza any other time and just wait until an hour before the place closes to buy pizza. I'm not even making that stuff up. That's how people are. And more selfishly, I don't want to be busy making pizza in the last hour before we close because I got raided by penny-pinching a-holes. Now, we don't donate the pizza we don't sell. Firstly, by the time that food gets to the people who could eat it, that is old garbage pizza. Why do you think that just because someone is down on their luck, they deserve some of those? Is that what you think they want to eat? They're not your damn garbage disposal bins. But most importantly, it's a health code violation. If it's not good enough to sell to you, it's not good enough to give away. If someone gets sick eating some old, crusty donated pizza, the place will be held liable for it. Places like restaurants or grocery stores that have donated old food in the past have lost lawsuits from people who took the food as donations and got sick from it. Now they just throw most of it away to cover themselves. However, there are some items that my workplace does donate. It's not pizza though. Just another example of people taking advantage of a good thing and screwing it up for everyone else. Now, I won't give the pizza away just because I'm going to throw it away. The reason we're discouraged from doing this is that pizza makers will just happily make a ton of extra pizza they know they can't sell and either take it home for themselves or give it to other coworker friends. And you can be sure that is literally exactly what I would do. I love pizza, and I love making pizza for my friends. Story 3. I'm not 100% sure if this is an actual rule, but I imagine it must be. Warning labels on packages of peanuts that say, may contain nuts. Everybody loves to joke about how that warning shouldn't be necessary, and some people use it as an example of how the world has gone mad, or how we're over litigious nowadays, even though the presence of a warning label doesn't necessarily mean somebody was sued. The actual reason you would have that specific warning in that specific product is because peanuts are not actually nuts, but are sometimes processed in the same factories as actual nuts. If you have an allergy to tree nuts but not peanuts, which are legumes, you'd probably really want to know if the otherwise safe to you peanuts you're snacking on might contain traces of the true tree nuts that may cause a reaction. Having said that, even on products where it should be obvious, like putting containing peanuts on peanut butter, does it really harm anybody to have a warning label there if it might possibly reinforce a vital fact to somebody with an allergy? I also once went to a restaurant that had a bar with some friends, and for some reason they weren't allowing anyone below drinking age, 21 in that day. I showed my driver's license to the guy for age verification, and he told me he couldn't let me in because my license had expired 2 days before. I have a 2-year license since I'm an international student. The date of birth on my license still showed me at 24, but he said he wouldn't. Couldn't? Let me in. At the time, I was super upset because while my license was expired, that didn't magically change my age. I wasn't in the mood to argue, so I just left. After some online searching, I found out that, as per the law, verifying someone in an expired ID is the same as verifying in a fake ID, and the blame lies in the verifier, aka the poor guy just trying to do his job. The management would not have risked their business for this one dude, so while this law is extremely dumb, it does kind of make sense. Story 4. Compulsory voting. Less influence of money in the system, the whole dynamic of convincing your people to turn up and the others to live in the apathy is gone. No access issues. Everyone has to vote, so if you're stuck at work, you can either pre-poll or, in many places, vote at work. There's no compulsion to cast a valid vote. You just need to turn up and have your name checked off. You can cross out the names and make it clear you don't want any of them. Much less fraud. You can't easily vote for others, at least not on a large scale, because they will turn up, discover that a vote has been made in their name, and report it. It isn't an issue. I used to be against this, but having seen elections in Greece, fair but with all the issues above, and the USA, atrocious, I can't believe anyone thinks that the system is valid, I think the Australian model is the only way to go. Also, being a bouncer, we ask people to go through the ropes, the queue system, even if there are no other people in the queue. And even though we have an opening in the ropes right in front of the entrance. The reason is that you never know how much time it will take to check someone's ID, purse, or bag, or who may be too tipsy to enter and may cause a scene. This would clutter up the opening, which is also an exit and leads straight to the sidewalk, which can be pretty busy. People start queuing up where they see other people standing. The sidewalk gets blocked and people passing by start walking in the street instead, which can be risky. If someone were to cause a fight when denied access, there's a much bigger chance that innocent bystanders might get involved if this happens in the sidewalk than it happens in the front of the queue, as this area is more controlled. Story 5. I used to be a flight attendant, so many rules seem stupid but make sense in certain situations. For example, people are always mad because they have to put their phone or computer away for takeoff and landing, but the fact is that those are the most dangerous parts of the flight. I personally discovered why they want them stored when, on takeoff one day, we had some weird weather that caused extreme turbulence. Anything that wasn't stored went flying. Shoes, phones, books, computers, etc. So not only did people's property get messed up, but it also hit other people. It was insane and completely unexpected by the flight crew. Just put your stuff away. Flying is dangerous, and it's amazing that we managed to complete millions of flights a year with so few injuries. Also, as a flight attendant, not only could I be fired, but I could be fined tens of thousands of dollars personally if I let you ignore the rules. So just don't. Another thing I remembered, not related to flying, is that the driver window and the front passenger window shouldn't be tinted too dark. It is illegal to tint at all in some states. It makes perfect sense, so I can see what the other driver is doing and know whether to avoid him or her. I've seen other drivers text or eat or do makeup or open an Amazon package while driving. I realize there's the underlying problem with texting or being distracted while driving too, and I nope away from them. One time I almost got hit by a BMW because he was texting and I could barely see inside his limo tent, however dark it was. Thankfully, the other lane was opened up because if I slammed on my brakes, the car behind me would have rear-ended me. Also, tailgating stinks. Highly popular opinion, but the front passenger and driver windows should never, ever be allowed to go darker than 50%. People who get angry at the first rule are either just entitled or being unreasonable. Or both. Story 6. Mass surveillance and strict rules. When you're a citizen, you want all the freedom that you can get. But once you're in the administration, the police force, or the government, you'll realize the immense possibility of something going wrong. There could be all kinds of incidents and accidents. Stuff can happen at any time without warning. People will blame the government for everything, but the reality is that the government is also just a bunch of people. They can't predict any better than you can. So the best way to deal with any situation is to have as much central control as possible. A direct chain of command will ensure a faster resolution of the crisis. Mass surveillance will help in helping and finding people faster. Of course, I'm not promoting mass surveillance, but it is one way to look at it too. Another thing that came to mind is that there's a law in Massachusetts where you can't have anyone else in the vehicle for your first 6 months of having a driver's license if you're not yet of age. There are exceptions, of course, such as driving a family member, license or no license, but if even one passenger isn't of age, then another 6 months are added to your license. If I remember right, you could even get it taken away for some time if caught enough. I personally feel like the exceptions make the law kind of pointless. It's made to make sure that fewer youngsters are involved in accidents, but it still doesn't stop people that are related to the driver from getting into them. But at the same time, it's understandable. It doesn't stop me and 95% of the other young drivers with a new license from breaking that rule, though. Hey there. Before we dive into the next rule that sounds made up, hit the like button and subscribe for more intriguing content. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on the next one. Story 7. No recording devices or cell phones, even in your pocket, on a roller coaster. I used to work at Busch Gardens, and guests would get so mad that we would ask them about phones in their pockets and kick them off the ride if they didn't put their phones in the cubbies. But it's because when a phone or camera that you're holding to record your epic ride drops or falls out of your pocket, it has a high possibility of hitting someone. Plus, as an employee, it's a huge safety violation if I let you take it once I see it. I could get fired. Prosthetics fall into this category as well. Yes, I've had to hold on to a few while I was an employee there. Also, one of my first jobs was working in a supermarket. We're trained that if anyone young-looking wanted to buy booze, we had to ID them. Fair enough. But suppose that same person come back on another day and you recognize them from the last time and remember that they're of legal age. That doesn't matter. I still need to ask for ID every time. Why? Because if another customer sees a young-looking person get served without even being asked for ID, they might report it to the police. The police will then shut the store down for the day while they review all the CCTV footage and interview everyone in the staff. By the time they establish that the customer was not underage, the store will have lost at least a day's worth of business and gained a reputation as a place that sells booze to kids. Story 8. Back when I used to work in the shows and attractions department at a theme park, strollers were not allowed in any of the show stadiums and certain exhibits. People would absolutely flip over this. People would see dozens, sometimes hundreds on a busy day of strollers parked all along the pathways and still try to come in with theirs. Whenever we would stop them and politely ask them to park it, they would become irate. We were constantly shouted at because of this, more times than we could count. I can partially understand their initial frustration. It is a theme park geared towards families, so why are strollers forbidden from the shows? Because of the fire code. See all those dozens and dozens of strollers in the pathway? Imagine all of those crammed into an already packed stadium. Imagine some kind of emergency happening and everybody scrambling to leave all at once. People are running up and down stairs and the crowd is bottlenecking at all the exits. All those strollers would slow everything down and create a hazard. Also, fine. Can I at least take it to the PWD seating? No, you absolutely cannot. Our stadiums have very, very limited spots for wheelchairs. I don't care if nobody's sitting there now, but what if someone in a wheelchair would like to see the show but shows up 5 minutes later and can't because your entitled, able-bodied self took up a spot with their stroller? But my baby has been awake all day and she's finally asleep. So you think the best thing to do would be to take it to a show with obnoxiously loud music and sound effects? Working there really made me hate strollers. Well, you can wear your baby in a carrier nowadays. Story 9. I was at a medium-sized plant in Wisconsin about to do some support in a holding furnace. Before I'm allowed to do work, I have to review their safety material and sign a few sheets. Kind of standard stuff for plants approaching this size. As I'm flipping through the book, I get to the safety section regarding their melters, and something piques my interest. Normally they're pretty repetitive, but this page had one rule I've never seen anywhere else. No water on the operating deck. All water must be in the operator's room. This includes spittle. What? Why did it have to specify that? So I asked the main and supervisor. Oh well, this is something you've got to hear. We had an operator who liked to chew tobacco. Not really an issue as he kept his spittoon in the operator room. Disgusting, but whatever. He showed up and did his job, until one day, he decided to put the bottle in the pocket of his shirt as he did his job. At first, it wasn't an issue until toward the end of the shift when it got more and more full. You see, he opened the furnace to check the temperature visually. As he bent over, it spilled out into the furnace. Boom. Metal flew everywhere. The kicker was his family sued afterwards. They argued that the no water rule was vague and he didn't know it applied to other fluids. I mean, that kinda should have been a no-brainer, not gonna lie. Story 10. Many chess tournaments are segregated by gender. On the surface, you'd think that there shouldn't be a difference between men's and women's abilities to play chess, and you'd be right. The thing is, though, that in mixed chess tournaments, women are very underrepresented. If you were to hold two gendered events, however, you'd get a much higher number of women in attendance. There's also the fact that females perform so much worse at chess that it's almost statistically impossible for there to ever be a female world champion in a mixed tournament. The gender split exists primarily because this difference is well recognized and both genders are given an equal playing field. It has nothing to do with females being underrepresented and everything to do with a female ELO distribution being 250 points to the left of the male distribution. Even if women outnumbered men in chess 100 to 1, the chances of a female world champion would still be almost impossible due to this gap. That's how big it is. Sorry if this doesn't line up with today's politically correct agenda. And it does appear to be an actual gender innate skill difference, not a socioeconomic factor. The gender ELO gap has remained constant ever since it was tracked, while socioeconomic factors for females have been trending up. Story 11. When a police officer tells you to do something even though you don't understand why, there's very good reason behind it. The media is awful at portraying this anywhere near accurately. The biggest example is, keep your hands out of your pocket. Do not put your hands into your pockets. Simple and clear instructions. Yet in certain areas, within 10 seconds, they're going right back into the pocket. In case you don't think this is an issue, firearms quickly come out of pocket, so it's paramount that you don't put your hands there after being told. If you didn't know, reaction is insanely slower than action, so you cannot allow anything that will cause this. Secondary reasoning is people think they can just ignore that and pull a cell phone out of their pocket. Well, in low-light situations, what do you think a cell phone resembles? If you have nothing and do this, you're looked at as suspicious and will probably now be searched. What do you think people who carry substances unconsciously do? They touch those items as an unconscious nervous tick. Some try to ditch those items, etc. Always listen to a police officer. You can always complain later if you've been treated unjustly. Story 12. Don't work on the Sabbath. I mean this in the more serious sense of not just refraining from what you do for a job, but don't do any of the annoying crap of the day-to-day life. It seems onerous and outdated on the surface, but I think there's a lot of wisdom to it. If you're not accustomed to it, I find that it's surprisingly difficult to have one day just reserved to relax and enjoy life, free of bothersome responsibilities. This means don't pay bills, don't do housework, don't buy groceries, and don't run the little errands you just need to get done. It actually takes some forethought and planning to make sure you don't let the little annoying things just pile up for weekend work, but it is amazingly rewarding to feel like you just don't need to do anything for one day. I think it's actually a very smart rule. If you don't stop to really enjoy and experience your life, you just end up living day to day, week to week, with the exception of vacations. So before you know it, life is passing you by and you wonder where the time went. This way you get a little vacation every single week. God knows I need one of these. Story 13. No hard candy at school. I had a second grade student who had trouble with a heart-shaped hard candy in class. I performed the Heimlich maneuver and managed to dislodge it slightly. I had the most responsible student run for help. We got him a rolling chair and pushed him to the nurse's office. However, she was not there. Thankfully, the school secretary showed up and she called 911. Fortunately, the local ambulance service was in town, having just returned from the closest hospital, which is 50 miles away. The candy had softened enough on the ride to the hospital, ensuring that the boy survived. I called his guardian that evening, and she was so appreciative that it didn't happen during his bus ride home or while alone at home. So, no hard candy in my classroom ever again. Who knew rules could sometimes defy our expectations? These are quite reasonable, but there's always a flip side of rules that take a sharp turn for the worse. Head over to What Rules Have Been Implemented and Backfired Horribly. I don't miss Story 2's epic hilarity. See you there.